Tonight on Reporting Scotland, as the inquest ends into the deaths of two Scottish couples killed in the Tunisia terror attack, relatives speak of the impact on their families.
The whole family's been in shock really for the past year and a half. I don't think there'll be any total closure on it until such times as we hear what recommendations are going to be made.
Also on the programme, calls for curbs on alcohol advertising as well as sports and music sponsorship by drinks companies to protect children.
I'm at the National Museum of Scotland, newly crowned as the country's most popular visitor attraction.
He won silver at the London Olympics. Now Michael Jamieson tells us why he's decided to retire after battling depression. And Motherwell sack manager Mark McGee after a run of bad results left the Steelmen near the foot of the Premiership. Hello there, good evening. The families of the two Scots couples killed in the Tunisia terror attacks last June have been speaking of the devastating effect it's had on them as the coroner today delivered his conclusion at the inquest. He found that all 30 Britons were unlawfully killed. Cameron Buttle was at that hearing for us and joins us now from outside the Royal Courts of Justice in London. Cameron.
When the inquest started here around 6 weeks ago, the families were looking for answers. Could their loved ones have been better protected? Today, at the end of the inquest, the judge was scathing of the response of the Tunisian police force and of the inadequate security at the hotel, where a lone gunman killed 30 British tourists, 4 of them from Scotland. It was a holiday to celebrate the beginning of a retirement they had both worked so hard for. Anne and Jim McQuire from Cumbernauld were both in their 60s. But as they enjoyed their holiday, a terrorist cell was watching their hotel. It was seen as a soft target for their gunman, Saifuddin Rezgi. They armed him with an assault rifle, 5 30-round magazines and grenades, and he began his killing spree in the late morning as he calmly walked up the beach to the hotel. As he made his way through the resort, he caught Jim and Anne by the swimming pool. Anne died at the scene. Jim died on the way to hospital after waiting 20 minutes with a gunshot wound to his pelvis. Their family watched the final day of the inquest via video link to Stirling.
3 weeks before Jim and Anne were killed, my wife and I retired and we had a party. And that was the last time the whole family were together. Unfortunately, in the aftermath of what happened in Tunisia, we lost another sister-in-law who died 3 weeks after the incident that happened. So the whole family's been in shock really for the past year and a half.
Lisa and Billy Graham were celebrating their wedding anniversary at the resort. The couple from Perthshire ran into the hotel to get away from the gunman, but as this hotel CCTV shows, the gunman followed them upstairs. He caught them on the first floor and shot them both once in the chest. They died in the corridor. Today at the inquest, the judge was highly critical of the Tunisian security forces. He said there were only 3 unarmed guards on duty at the hotel. When the shooting started, 2 of them ran away and 1 of them hid. He said the police response was at best shambolic, at worst cowardly. He also said there was a specialist response unit nearby. It was only minutes away, but it returned to base to get more weapons. The judge said this was a deliberate and unjustifiable delay. Security forces eventually cornered Saifuddin Rezgi outside the hotel and gunned him down. He'd been shot 20 times.
I don't think there'll be any total closure on it until such times as we hear what recommendations are going to be made, by the coroner, and I think that will probably help us out.
The judge said that there were endless what-ifs. What if there were more guards, more security cameras, better travel advice? But ultimately, he said it was a sudden and unexpected attack, and they would have made little difference. The judge has now asked for further submissions from the families, from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and from the tour operators. He said he will consider making any recommendations at a later date. But tonight, some of the families are considering a civil action.
Thanks for that. There are calls for the Scottish Government to curb alcohol advertising in a bid to protect children. Alcohol Focus Scotland said there was clear evidence that exposure to alcohol marketing through sports sponsorship and public adverts led children to start drinking at a younger age. Andrew Black reports.
Gerald Davis has given the cup to...
Alcohol marketing is all around us. We often see it in sports like rugby and football. And Scotland's best-known music festival is named after their brewer, which sponsors it. Now the charity Alcohol Focus Scotland says this kind of marketing is enticing children to drink at an earlier age.
You're listening to Kay Adams' programme on BBC Radio Scotland.
But does the man in charge of Tea in a Park think this is the problem?
I don't think alcohol sponsorship per se is an issue in itself. I think... people's approaches to alcohol is where the problems are. The cheap availability of alcohol, is a real problem.
So is there enough evidence to link advertising to consumption?
If children are exposed to it, and you can measure that by just simply asking them what they have seen, and you can see that a 13-year-old who's seen a lot of alcohol marketing is more likely to drink, not just then, but more likely to drink when you go back to them a year or two later.
Tobacco advertising has been banned in the UK since 2002. The authors of today's report say that's played a huge part in our nation's health and now want similar restrictions for alcohol. But would that make a difference to young people today?
I think there should be a cut down on how much is shown on TV and in billboards and stuff, because young people who maybe kind of don't have an understanding of the effect of alcohol will see vodka adverts and kind of not understand that it's a really, really strong spirit.
I drink for pleasure and do it with friends, and I see more marketing against alcohol than I do for alcohol.
The Scottish Government wants to tackle problem drinking through minimum alcohol pricing, but that policy's been delayed because of legal action. Ministers say they'll study today's report while continuing to press the UK Government, which has responsibility for broadcast advertising. Andrew Black, reporting Scotland.
The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, is accusing the Conservatives of attempting to use Brexit to unpick the powers of the Scottish Parliament. Her political rivals say she's scaremongering to boost the case for another independence referendum. Our political correspondent Glenn Campbell is at Holyrood for us tonight. So what's the argument, Glenn?
Well, it's no surprise that Nicola Sturgeon believes the UK system of government doesn't serve Scotland well. No surprise that she also thinks the Brexit vote, where Scotland voted one way and the UK as a whole voted the other, is a good illustration of that. But I think she's turning up the rhetoric a notch or two this evening in a speech here in Edinburgh, suggesting that some Conservatives want to use Brexit to undermine the devolution settlement, that whilst during the Leave campaign it was said that a Brexit vote would mean more powers coming to Holyrood, there are actually some who want to use the negotiation for leaving the EU to take powers away from this place. Now, her critics have hit back. Labour says that she's scaremongering, the Conservatives that she's manufacturing a grievance here, and the UK government has also responded, arguing that their position is being misrepresented, that they've made clear they don't want to take any devolved powers away through the Brexit process, and that they will use the opportunity to ensure more decisions are taken in places like the Scottish Parliament and the other devolved assemblies without specifying exactly what powers might end up here.
Thanks, Glenn. MSPs have been told compensation for survivors of childhood abuse in Scotland could reach at least £200 million. Holyrood's Justice Committee has been taking evidence on a government bill to allow victims of abuse to claim compensation beyond the current 3-year time bar. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, Revel Alderson.
Charities say few child victims of sexual abuse report the offence within 8 years, but the law only allows victims 3 years to sue their abuser. That's why the government wants to extend this so-called time bar back to 1964. But how much will the cost of compensation be? A small inquiry into institutional child abuse in Jersey may give a guide, the committee was told.
You've got an average cost of around £40,000, and in Scotland that would involve about £200 million if we had the same kind of numbers, which would be around 5,000 in Scotland. So the scale of this, even at its potentially lowest level, is highly significant.
The government estimated its bill would result in 2,200 court actions, but police say records they've examined of just one former force, Strathclyde, going back just 17 years, suggest that's a serious underestimate.
We have found, or we have catalogued for those specific types of terms of reference, just less than 2,300 files. That said, we have 4,400 victims.
MSPs wanted to know who'd pay the cost of legal actions, which could affect the services voluntary groups and councils provide. Would the government step in?
It should be adequately resourced, and if local authorities cannot meet those resources, absolutely there should be extra funds available to cover that. And there may well be circumstances in which local authorities didn't have insurance, and then you get significant amount of claims coming in. So that will be of serious and significant impact to local authorities. Yeah.
The government said it's consulting on the issue of financial redress, but it added that all bodies who have liability are required in law to meet that. Reval Alderson reporting, Scotland.
The National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh has become the country's most popular visitor attraction. Attracting nearly 2 million visitors last year, it replaces Edinburgh Castle at the top of a list which, it's claimed, shows the tourism sector is in robust health. Well, our reporter Stephen Godden is having a night at the museum. Stephen.
Yeah, Katrina, it's after hours here at the museum, which for the last couple of years has been jostling for position with Edinburgh Castle at the top of the list. But in the last 12 months, a 15% increase in visitor numbers here has seen it move to the top. Well, why is that? Well, I suppose first and foremost, it's free in contrast to the castle, so that doesn't hurt. But when you speak to people here, they point to the importance of a space like this. This is one of 10 new galleries that opened up last year, helping to attract more visitors, and it's based on the principle of a modern museum, not look but don't touch, but rather exhibits that you can get involved with, which may or may not be a good idea. Well, earlier I heard a little bit more about that.
It is interaction and people learning at the same time as getting involved with the collections. And the collections, we're here to look after them and keep them safe, but we want to share the collections with as many people as we can. It is about, we're in one of the most interactive galleries that we have here is Science and Technology, and we get a lot of very positive feedback about being able to be involved with the collection.
Well, more widely, as part of an upward trend. Across all of the visitor attractions in Scotland, they saw almost 30 million visits. That's an increase for the third year in a row. Well, why is that? Industry experts point to a number of factors. The exchange rate, one, more attractive to overseas visitors, while people here, as well as taking foreign holidays, are going on day trips and coming to places like this. So overall, a sector in rude health, but there is no room for complacency, and certainly here they're working on more exhibits over the next 3 years to try and hang on to that #1 spot.
Excellent stuff. Thanks very much, Stephen. Police searching for a missing teenage girl from North Ayrshire believe she may have travelled to England to meet with someone she met online. 16-year-old Abby Lewis was last seen late on Sunday evening in the town's Dock Head Street in Saltcoats. She was heading towards the train station. It's thought Abby may be trying to get to the Birmingham area to meet someone she met on the internet. Police investigating the rape of a woman in a Renfrewshire village revisited the scene of the attack last night and spoke to more than 70 people. The woman was attacked behind the Wallace Primary School in Elderslie a week ago. Officers want to find a man who's described as white and aged between 35 to 50. Local residents are also being asked to check their gardens and bins for any unfamiliar items of discarded clothing. Orkney councillors have backed calls for the islands to be given greater control over their own affairs. But while they want locals to be given a stronger voice, they do not back full independence for Orkney. The islands voted decisively in favour of the UK remaining in the EU in last year's referendum and returned the highest no vote of any council area in the 2014 independence referendum.
I think Orcadians, whether they're newly arrived here to make their home or whether they can trace their roots back for 1,000 years, I think they have an absolute right and an entitlement to a good, strong voice for themselves.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's coming up on 6:45. A reminder of tonight's top story. As the inquest ends into the deaths of 2 Scottish couples killed in the Tunisia terror attack, relatives speak of the impact on their families. And still to come, Scotland's women's football team are in Cyprus as part of their preparations for this summer's European Championships. Scots Olympic and Commonwealth silver medalist Michael Jamieson is retiring from competitive swimming aged just 28, following a battle with depression. He hopes talking about it now will help other athletes cope with mental illness. Maura Kinnebra has been hearing more.
I think there was a long period where I just kind of lost my way. And
Michael Jamieson doesn't swim at all now.
So many athletes find themselves in a similar situation, and sport has become so professional and almost hyper-focused now that athletes are becoming really self-absorbed.
His silver medal at the London Olympics led to high expectations.
It's a fantastic silver medal for Great Britain.
I loved that part of it, and I wanted to be an example within the team, and I wanted to perform to my best, but no external pressures would ever match the pressure I placed on myself.
Take your mark.
At the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, he won silver again.
I really wanted to make that leap from silver to challenging for medals and world records and things like that, and it became an obsession, and it just became pretty destructive, I think.
He still loves the sport, but needs a break before he can get back into the pool.
Athletes are become so hyper-focused in search of performance gains physically that psychological elements are often forgotten about.
The brutal training regime led to a long battle with depression.
For someone that's so invested in one project, one goal, one event, if you don't quite make it, then do you have the framework and support network to catch it? And I know a lot of athletes don't have that. If I can speak to half a dozen athletes that come forward and help them get the support they need, then that would really help me as well. Trying to find a bit of purpose and trying to give something back. Because like I said, I got a huge deal of support there, which I'm so grateful for, but it's not available to everyone, and if I can be some sort of bridge to a few people, then I'd love to do that.
A play based on the accounts of survivors and perpetrators of so-called honour-based violence is set to tour Scotland. If I Had a Girl gives an insight into the experiences of those from South Asian communities. Shabnam Mahmood went along to the rehearsals.
Rehearsals for the play If I Had a Girl kick off with wedding celebrations. But it's not the joy of marriage being celebrated in this theatre production.
He still broke my nose.
These actors are voicing the stories of some of those in Scotland's Asian community who've suffered honour-based violence.
I'm going to strip you naked, tie you to a lamppost.
I remember when I first watched it, I froze up because this was something that was very real. And to watch people actually playing me, it was quite scary. But I realised the importance that it needed to be shown, it needed to be spoken about.
Ghazala endured years of abuse, even while she was pregnant, before walking out of the marriage with her baby daughter.
I am not a victim. I very much see myself as a survivor. And part of that journey has been talking about this, about what had happened to me, and part of that journey has been helping others.
Ghazala's story is just one of a few that make up the play, which also draws on the experiences of the perpetrators of this kind of crime.
I don't think that at any stage there's a danger with anyone feeling empathy strongly for the male characters in that they have been perpetrators of this type of violence, but certainly what we'll do is increase their level of understanding as to why they did it.
Those behind the play hope it will challenge some of the taboo subjects facing South Asian communities. They also believe the healing power of storytelling will help those suffering in silence. Shabnam Mahmood, BBC Reporting Scotland.
Scotland's preparations for this summer's European Championships continue in Cyprus. Anna Sinyo's side face New Zealand in the first match of the Cyprus Cup tomorrow, a tournament that's become a regular fixture in their calendar. But as Chris McLaughlin reports, this year's event is being somewhat overshadowed.
Cyprus in winter has the feeling of an island waiting for the summer. Some determined tourists try to ignore the uninvited locals, but happy hour it is not. A few miles inland, others are thinking of the summer too. Scotland are here for the Cyprus Cup, but all talk is of Holland.
It's definitely a different mindset. You know, we've never qualified for a major tournament. I think we're all extremely excited. And you've got that kind of one thing to aim for. So it's the summer, the Euros, the 3 games we have in the group, and I think as an athlete, it's good to have that kind of in your mind, back of your mind. And you know, we all have that common goal, so it's exciting, yeah.
Cyprus is familiar territory for these players, but there's a feeling around this squad that's really hard to describe. Excitement, yes, nervousness, perhaps, but remember, this is a squad of players who will be representing Scotland at a major finals in the summer for the first time in a generation. And after that, this woman will turn her back on the Scottish game after over a decade in charge. Something she's finding difficult to face.
I know I will be very nostalgic, you know, in the end, because it's been 12 fantastic years. So, but for the moment, I just want to focus on this, and then in August I can cry.
But the tide waits for no man or woman. Scotland, like Cyprus, must move on. For now, both wait. The summer is coming. Chris McLaughlin, reporting Scotland, Cyprus.
And staying with football, Motherwell Football Club is looking for a new manager after sacking Mark McGee. It follows a run of 4 successive defeats and a fan protest last weekend. McGee leaves the club 10th in the table, just 3 points off the bottom. The club captain says the players have to shoulder the blame for their manager's departure. Alistair Lamont's at Fir Park for us this evening. Now, Alistair, what have the club been saying today then?
Yeah, Motherwell cited the disappointing run of results lately, which culminated in a 5-1 defeat here at Fir Park against Dundee just at the weekend. That loss and a 7-2 reverse recently up at Pittodrie were particularly hard for the club's supporters to take, and of course Mark McGee has ultimately carried the can for those results, but as you say, some senior players today have been saying they should shoulder at least some of the blame.
Even the most experienced members of the Motherwell squad were taken aback by today's news.
Massive disappointment. You know, feel as if as a group we've let the manager down, to be honest. It's our responsibility now. We know we need to move on. Know it's the game that we're involved in. From a player's point of view, we still believed he was a man that could, certainly turn things around. We knew we were we had a sticky few weeks. There's no doubt about that. But you know, Mark, we felt was the right man to turn things around.
Mark McGee had done that last season, taking over in October 2015 with the club in 9th place. By the end of the campaign, they were 5th. This season, though, was proving tough. A 7-2 thumping in Aberdeen was compounded by a touchline altercation with the 4th official.
And he's had words with someone, and it looks as though he's being sent to the stand.
And another with an opposing fan. But the tipping point came on Saturday. 5-1 down at home to Dundee by half-time. Some fans couldn't watch any more and made their feelings known outside. As a supporter-run club, Motherwell have to pay more attention than most to fans' opinions. The board met last night and delivered the decision to Mark McGee in person here this morning. Taking the reins on an interim basis is Steve Robinson, assistant to previous manager Ian Barraclough, and who came back to the club just 2 weeks ago.
Ultimately, the manager takes the blame on it.
all the time. You know, you can't sack footballers, so the manager does take the brunt of the criticism and the brunt of the decisions. So, you know, the players, you know, they now need to act on that. You know, there's been a lot of talking done, so they need to act on that and go out and prove a point on Saturday. They're a good bunch of players. They are a good bunch of players. You know, I believe they're a better bunch than when I came in under Ian Barraclough. But now they need to start proving that on a consistent basis and start trying to climb the table.
Steve Robinson, they're certainly a candidate to take on the role on a permanent basis. He wouldn't commit himself either way today. Another potential candidate would be Stephen Craigan, who's working alongside Steve Robinson at the moment. He's the under-20s boss. He stood in on an interim basis before Mark McGee was appointed and is helping out once again. Motherwell certainly won't have a permanent manager in place for this Saturday's match, but I know they are keen to make a new appointment to replace Mark McGee as quickly as possible.
Thanks for that, Al. And now to see how the weather's faring with Kirsty.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Good evening to you. Well, the last day of the meteorological winter has been reasonably kind to us. We've had some decent spells of sunshine across much of the country, as illustrated by one of our weather watchers in Edinburgh and another from Terrace Views in Mallig in Inverness-shire. However, across the north this afternoon we have also had some wintry showers, and these will certainly continue this evening and tonight, giving some slight accumulations of snow even to low levels across the Northern Isles, the Western Isles and the North West Highlands in particular. And with clearing skies at times, temperatures falling to around freezing, if not just below, there will be a risk of some icy stretches on any untreated roads and surfaces. Much of the rest of the country, however, staying dry with a widespread frost developing, just that bit more in the way of cloud across the far southwest with perhaps 1 or 2 showers. So tomorrow in the north dawns with frequent showers, again wintry in nature and the risk of ice for a time. As we go through the day, however, these showers will tend to become fewer and lighter in nature, and across much of the rest of the country it looks dry, bright with some spells of sunshine, perhaps just 1 or 2 showers at times across the south, and temperatures peaking around 7 Celsius. 1 or 2 showers towards western coastal areas and a few continuing into the Northwest Highlands, the Northern Isles also, again wintry over the hills and perhaps the high ground, and a chilly feel across the north again tomorrow with highs of around 5 Celsius and winds coming in from the west. Now tomorrow evening, some showers feeding into the southwest, especially across the north, becoming increasingly unsettled with another batch of showers feeding in on brisk westerly winds. So we dawn on Thursday again with plenty of showers in the north, wintry over the hills and perhaps the high ground at times, becoming fewer and lighter as we go through the day. Elsewhere a lot of dry, bright weather with some sunshine and highs of around 8 Celsius, and Friday will bring us much the same conditions with some showers in the north. That's a forecast. Katrina.
Thanks very much for that, Kirstine. And now a reminder of tonight's main news. The families of the 2 Scots couples killed in the Tunisia terror attacks last June have been speaking of the devastating effect it's had on them, as the coroner today delivered his conclusion at the inquest. Well, that's all from Reporting Scotland for now. From everybody on the team right across the country, have a very good evening. Bye for now.